Namaskar, good afternoon to one and all. It is my great pleasure to welcome our worthy guests and audience to the third session of Day 2, Realize the Dream of Atmanirbhar Bharat Inclusive Development, being organized under the umbrella of Tech for Seva. This event is jointly being hosted by Vibha, Unnat Bharat Abhiyan and CBIOT. We are fortunate to have Sri Madan Krishnan, our worthy chief guest, our worthy panelists, Dr. Akshay Saxena, Dr. Sushil Rana, Dr. Sumir Sehgal, Sri Rajiv Gulati, Dr. Harish Kumar, Sri Divakar Bhattacharya, and our eminent awardee, Sri Ayush Kapoor. It is stated that the post-COVID world would be based on five pillars: economy, infrastructure, system, demography, and demand. The strength of any country in the current times will depend on the support it provides to startups and business based on innovative concepts. Supporting enterprises in the manufacturing sectors across the different domains of healthcare delivery will help the economies to bounce back and reach new heights. So once again, we welcome you to the session, Realize the Dream of Atmanirbhar Bharat, Inclusive Development. I now take this proud opportunity to introduce our worthy chief guest, Sri Madan Krishnan, CEO, Medtronics. He's the Vice President and Managing Director, Medtronic India. He has an expertise in providing access to healthcare, emerging markets, developing and nurturing high-performing teams, and driving innovation. He chaired for the Advanced Medical Technology Association, India Working Group, and is on the board of Medical Technology Association of India. His experience includes leadership roles in Turkey, South Africa, South Korea, Southeast Asia, and other Asia-Pacific countries. He has over 20 years of leadership experience in healthcare, in emerging and developed healthcare systems. He has proficiency in Turkish, Malayalam, Tamil, Hindi, in addition to English, and has working knowledge of Korean and Spanish. We are really grateful to be having you here, sir, and it would be really nice if you can just give us a few words of motivation. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And namaste to each and everyone on the panel, esteemed panelists, and also all the distinguished guests who are joining through a digital media. It's always a pleasure. And first of all, let me thank Dr. Varinder Garg and the team who have worked with a purpose, with tireless purpose to bring like-minded organizations to address this critical and crucial issue, which will be a big enabler for India's next stage of development, to ensure that technology is made accessible to people in India and all around the world. And India plays a role leveraging technology for Atmanirbhar Bharat and inclusive development. And we're really happy to have representatives of Vigyan Bharati, Vibha, Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, and the CBIOT team who are anchoring this conference. So I think if you look at overall the purpose of technology, and even a company like Medtronic, which was founded 7 decades ago, our mission is to leverage medical technology, to leverage advances in engineering to the betterment of mankind. So that has been the principle for 7 decades, right from the time we have introduced the first, battery-powered pacemaker close to 7 decades ago. When it comes to India, clearly we have a huge opportunity to leverage technology, and technology in the medical device space can help us leapfrog from a continuum of care to the most advanced continuum of care, where outcomes are improved, efficiency, effectiveness of healthcare system is improved, and healthy India is a productive India. And I'm really, really privileged to work in this industry for over 20 years to say that medical technology often is curative in nature, it's not palliative, and the technology can be deployed and addressed, which can be a big accelerator to the economy. Right now, if you see, our data is showing that every day in our own India, more than 4,500 people are afflicted by stroke. Now, the percentage of people who get the right care at the right time is hardly 2 to 3%. Rest of them have, faced death or even, paralysis of varying degree, which is also a big challenge for the families. Now we have the technology, the more advanced technology available, made available by companies. We have centers of excellence, PGI being one of them, but we have other centers of excellence in India. But the challenge is that how do we bring all of them together? How do we bring capability? How do we bring pathway? And how do we ensure that everything works in an integrated manner? And I think that's where technology comes to play. Whole idea, and I'm really happy that the key stakeholders are coming here together, how to leverage science for social good and social purpose. How do we come together as organizations, like-minded organizations, to ensure that the benefits of science and technology are reaching people, therapies are reaching people, and we also continue to improve India's capability so that we become Atmanirbhar and our inclusiveness of development becomes inclusive. I want to start looking at 2 or 3 dimensions which can accelerate our growth towards Atmanirbhar Bharat. In one area specifically where we are really privileged is the quality of our human capital. We are unique. We have unique in that sense. India has the highest number of English being a global language. We have highest number of technology professionals, science, STEM, science, technology, education, mathematics graduates who can compete in the world arena. We have institutions of repute in India, across India, who are inferior to none in the world. So I think we have this unique asset. And as our own Dr. Prahlad mentioned, we have to look at our areas of core competence. How do we start with the area of core competence, which is R&D, development, research? In many ways, research and development in India could even be a bigger, impactful area than even Make in India, because the quality of the jobs that we can come into India are knowledge jobs, much higher in the ladder of value add. So that is what I'm very happy also to announce here, that about 6 months ago, we took a decision to set up the world's largest R&D center in India, single R&D center. This is the largest R&D centers outside the US also, if you look at it, internationally in India. The center in Hyderabad already has 500 high-end engineers, scientists, a team of 50 robotic engineering specialists in artificial intelligence and robotic technologies already helping us with global robotic program. And this center is expected to reach more than 1,000 engineers and qualified professionals. I'm sure, so we leverage the core competency of our human capital. We also can look at ways in which how India can play a bigger role in the global value chain. Because right now, the market in India for technology products in the medical device industry is small. So how do we become a bigger player in the global arena? There again, we are committed. I'm happy again that as part of a collaboration with CBIOD and this event, we are also launching an Asia Innovation Conference, whereby startup companies across India can have mentoring support and also financial support to scale up their ideas. So human capital, support to startups, and also through the R&D center and our own global centers, we are also very keen to work with institutions of repute like CBIOD. We also have excellent working relationship with BIRAC to see how multiple stakeholders come together to accelerate the innovation process in India. So I believe that the youth, the dynamism in India, the can-do attitude of our startups, there are organizations ready to provide funding, support, and mentorship. And together, all of this coming together, we can be a compelling force in the global arena, starting with R&D, starting with our own innovative spirit, and the whole environment in India becoming conducive for investment and also support for medical technology, which I said will be an accelerator to the economy. If the technology helps alleviate pain, restore health and extend life for a few million more people, a few crore of more people, that they will participate in productive way in the economy. A life saved will ensure that more economic contribution happens, and that will propel the Indian economy to the 5 trillion and the $10 trillion level that we all are aspiring and really inspired about. So I really want to wish the conference all the best. The conference and the partnership, we are committed to work together with the partners, and the CBIOD has all our support as an organization, and I look forward to further productive collaboration. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir, for such kind and motivational words. Now we move further for our panel discussion. I take this opportunity to introduce our eminent panelists, Sri Rajiv Gulati, UN Technology Innovation Labs, UNTI Labs, UNOICET. He served corporate, state and center government, United Nations and intergovernmental organizations for more than 37 years. He's a pioneer in creating many sustainable models for innovators, which he calls as playground for startups innovators. Government of Haryana Startup and Innovation Hub and many ecosystems in academia. Honored by Government of India, DPIIT Ministry of Commerce and Industry, goal for his contribution towards building a unique incubation ecosystem of the Haryana state 2018. He served AICTE MHRD as Regional Director for Northwest Region. He was also honored by MOE for his mentoring and acting as evaluator for Toy Kathon. We welcome you, sir. Our next panelist, Dr. Harish Kumar, Professor, Punjab University. He's a professor in computer science and engineering, UIET Punjab University, Chandigarh, UT. He's co-principal investigator, ICMR, CBIOD, PGI. He's the honorary director, Center for Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Punjab University, Chandigarh. Vishwesvarya Young Faculty Research Fellowship by Ministry of Electronics and IT, Government of India 2016. He has a 19-year teaching and research experience. He also got an international travel grant fellowship for young teachers by AICTE MHRD, Government of India 2008. Second Teachers Excellence Award by Dr. G.C. Mishra Memorial Trust at Chandigarh on Teachers Day 2019. We heartily welcome you, sir. Our next panelist, Dr. Akshay Saxena. He's a senior member of Pediatric Radiology, PGI-MER. He's the professor at Department of Radiology, PGI-MER, and current CCM, Chandigarh chapter of IRIA. He was invited as a faculty for conferences held in UK, South Korea, China, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, and Nepal. He's an organizing secretary, IRIA 2019, and he was also an organizing secretary, IREP 2017. He is an editorial board member of Pediatric Radiology Journal, internationally indexed papers and publications 140. Sir J.C. Bose Memorial Oration of IRIA 2016, and he was also awarded Dr. Arcot Gajaraj Endowment Oration ISPR 2009. We heartily welcome you, sir. Our next panelist, Sri Sushil Rana, Vice President, R&D Recorders and Medicare Systems Private Limited. He has 20 years of experience in medtech industry and international environment. He has been responsible for all aspects of the company's engineering product development activities, with focus on the structuring and operation of the product development engineering function. His specialities include product development, innovation, technical management, business development, medical devices. He has experience in telehealth related innovations and affordable medical devices. We welcome you, sir. So now I hand over the mic to Dr. Harish for the further panel discussion. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Shivali. So as pointed by our chief guest, Madan Krishnan ji, that in India, the medtech industry is now accelerating and scaling up, and the international giants like Medtronic are coming forward to handhold the startups and the ideas which are coming from R&D. So we will be starting this panel discussion with a person related to R&D. So first of all, I request Dr. Akshay Saxena, who is Professor of Radiology in Postgraduate Institute of Medical Education and Research, to please interact with the audience on this topic. Dr. Akshay Saxena, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. I believe I am audible to everyone. This session is important for the future of the country. And I would say that to achieve the goal, the dream of Atmanirbhar Bharat, we need to have a marriage. A marriage has to be performed between the medical sector and the technology sector, be that IT or the other branches of the technology sector. Unless there is marriage between the scholars of these two main streams, the goal of realizing the Atmanirbhar Bharat will be slightly difficult. And if the two streams, if the technology side knows what the medical side needs, and if the medical side needs knows what the technological side can provide, we certainly can fast track ourselves on a global map. So this marriage is of paramount importance and has to be coupled with the concept of innovation. You need not follow anybody else. You know what the problem is. You can innovate to your local needs, and I'm pretty sure what is useful in the Indian circumstances will also be useful on a global platform. So collaboration and innovation are the basic mantras which I would believe are key to the future for the country, and add to it the commitment for serving the poor and the downtrodden society of the country. Unless we look forward to meeting the aspirations of this community, we will not be reaching the stage of Atmanirbhar Bharat. We need every citizen to be in good physical and mental health. So these are the general principles based on which I would say that we should look forward to going towards the Atmanirbhar Bharat. And if you talk, you can achieve this much. I'm sure that we can improve the healthcare and we can generate employment also. We can have some specific examples, although like the list would be long and I'm certainly not going to provide a comprehensive list. But like, you know, we can have some basic examples, like we can find generic solutions to the expensive medication, produce them locally. That would give rise to possibility of providing medications to at an affordable cost to the people who cannot really afford the patented drugs. Then if you are producing this locally, that would provide employment to the Indian masses. Similarly, we can find solutions to the problem of high cost of the implants and the stents. That is where we can innovate. We can look for the appropriate material and mass production. That way we can again, you know, provide the affordable healthcare as well as provision for employment for the masses. So these are like some of the basic examples which we can do. And at the same time, while we are doing this, we should also look into the possibility of providing telemedicine as a sustainable option. The COVID-19 epidemic has brought to the front that large number of patients can be managed at a distance. That in itself has huge amount of benefits which we have discussed in the previous session, so I'm not going into it. The long and short of the story is telemedicine should be developed as a sustainable option for the welfare of the community. Similarly, like I mean, if you talk about marriage between the health sector and the technology sector, a very simple example: people are now delivering online medicines to the home. That itself is a relief to the patient. That itself saves inconvenience to the entire family. So simple things, simple innovations, they can certainly help the patients in a big way, and certainly they will generate the employment as well. So that is what I would recommend, and I would like to conclude by giving an example of CBiot. We have a very able leader in Dr. Varinder Garg, who thinks ahead of the time, who conceptualized CBiot, and now this center is working as a kind of a liaison between the health sector and the technology sector, bringing together the two sides, and they have already filed several patents. To the audience, my message is that if any one of you have any idea you want to connect with CBiot, just go to the Google, search CBiot, you will find the website, contact the team, and we'll be happy to support you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Akshay. You have rightly pointed out that there is a need of marriage between medical professionals and technologists. That's why Center for Innovation and Biodesign started here in PGI MER, because otherwise technologists work in isolation and medical professionals, medical scientists work in isolation. So if they work together on certain concepts, then definitely it will lead, that collaboration will lead towards the development of medtech industry. So my next question will go to the person, Shri Rajiv Gulati ji. Let me introduce one line about Rajiv Gulati ji. Rajiv Gulati ji was one of the pioneers when the Gurgaon IT and electronic city was developed. So he has a quite good experience in setting up the industry clusters, SEZs, special economic zones, and technology zones. So the question, there are two questions to GV. First question is, what is the role of medtech industry to realize dream of Atmanirbhar Bharat? And then what interventions are required for the development of medtech zones, which probably are quite less in India at this point of time in India. So these are the two questions. Then again, I will come back to GG for another question related to the manpower. GG, please.
To all the very young and creative, I can say, the team around the CBOID and other people who are associated with CBOID for organizing this need of the hour discussions, where from the last 2 years, everybody is starting becoming more serious about the health. Though our elders used to say, "Jaan hai to jahan hai." So, aaj jaake, when you start knowing what the importance of your health is, the people started looking into the technologies, other facilities, and all those things. And now, when the government started supporting under different slogans and different initiatives, when Atmanirbhar is now spread like in a voice of everybody. When today I wanted to be as a panelist over there, I felt when I'm going on to the Atmanirbhar, why not to take an oath also that, okay, yes, I will be doing that at a national level also. I'll be using the things which have been developed by India. I'll be promoting the things which will be developed by India for other people. Technically, when you talk about what you call the self-reliant, the Atmanirbharta, it is not only meant for this country only. It is meant for this planet. When the people on this planet are happy, when they are comfortable, when they are enjoying this good health, the economies automatically will start growing. And their health not only depends upon what they eat, what they breathe, and how they live. There are a number of things also that if they fell ill, how they have been treated over there. So the importance of the tools also becoming a big, what you call as a facilitator to them. Preventive health on one side, mental health on one side. But when you say, okay, you are in the hands of the doctors, and doctor needs some good tools to adopt this. And we have seen that when we want to realize the Atmanirbharta, and then look into deep dive into how many companies, how many Indian products are there into the healthcare, there are a lot many questions. Sitting in Chandigarh, around Chandigarh, I know I spent some good years over there when in way back in 83 and 84, one of the company which developed the India's first CT scanner, and fortunately I was of a team member, and I see a couple of people from there have grown up, they have created their own company, but they shifted outside India. Now, over there, I take some small examples while explaining my things, because that will be more interesting when you say, what your experience is into that. Those experience really carry some value. And when I deal with the startups, they say, okay, it is always good you tell your story. So let me tell you the stories and make you more interactive or more interesting into that. When we were developing the cities, there were data acquisition systems. How to capture the X-rays, convert into a digital form and capture. The DAS systems we used to say. So one fellow was called from USA to teach us, to share his knowledge in way back in 85. And let me share you, that fellow was from India, from Meerut, who has got number of patents at that time, which multinational companies which are developing the city at that time were using his data acquisition systems. So I was shocked to know, when he interacted with them, the fundamentals he was carrying, but all the patents were registered outside India. So the question comes when we talk about the Atmanirbharta, how comfortably we are creating that environment where, as the chief guest also said, now they are bringing the R&Ds to India. They know that India, which is full of, when we say the only status 50% of the youth and 50% lying in the rural area, there are a lot many things which we have to see into that. And when we look into the whole spectra of the life, when you talk about the health, on one side there are the youth who are maximum with the energy, where the maximum things can be done. On the other side, we have got the older people coming up in a big way, where we have to take care of their health also. It is becoming economically a challenge to how to provide this whole healthcare systems to this whole spectrum. So how comfortably we can create those tools, those systems where the people can start thinking of developing the medical tools over here only. And you must have seen, it is not only like the software which drives the everything at this moment. When you look into the automobile industry started facing a big challenge when there is a chip shortage also. So we talk about where the hardware is there, which is ultimately going to drive this whole story. So how many people have been trained over there to become as an Atmanirbhar, to understand this, that how fast we can start not only doing R&D, bringing the R&D to the society and try utilizing it. And parallelly, you asked me about the creating the zones. I generally say that zone is in a formation which I'll take like in a playground of innovators or playground of anybody. See, if I want to be a player of TT, I need to reel in a what you call in a TT table. If I want to win a player in the football, I need in a football ground. And if I want to win in a real innovator and a real player into that, who understand the game in and out, I need in a playground for the innovators. And government is the real facilitator into that. Lot many facilities has been created. They understood that in silence the things are not going to work, and we have to join the dots. We have to facilitate them under such an environment where people, the creativity, the science, technology can be really used, and practically through what you call these days and disruptive technologies can bring in a change in the society, that too on the positive side. And when you call about that change needs that leaving no one behind. And when you talk about the 50% of the people living at the rural area, that means that digital device should not be there. We have to look into that. And that's why the people started looking how the health can be transferred to their homes, to their places where they're living, instead of they traveling to a big hospital, to the regions of the metros and all those things. So this teleradiology and that started making a big effect. Now here comes, the zones. Lot many ministries, lot many what you call the departments. Talk about the Ministry of Education, talk about the Department of Science Technology, talk about the Ministry of IT also. They started building lot many ecosystems, maybe as an incubators, maybe facilitated as an accelerators, working with the academia. But the situation which I found when I go to the real fact, when we talk to those academia, they are in solace. Solace means, they are not creating the communities within those regions. So these zones, which the purpose meant for them is they have to collaborate also. Collaborate in a sense, whatever they were doing in Center of Excellence, they should spread their knowledge, the awareness, okay, we are here. Okay, we are there to facilitate. If this is not meant for this particular state, this is not meant for this particular institution, this can be utilized by anybody who is around there. If you are traveling, you want to utilize. Why I'm saying this, in medical equipment, the regulatory authorities, the testing authorities, the what you call the acceptance for launching your products, there are a lot of challenges into that. You must have seen during this pandemic, there are a lot many innovations lying in the R&D. Only this force has made them to come out. Though I know, the ventilators were designed here way back, even 2 decades back. But why even Maruti started building those portable ventilators within that small period? That means we have created a zone, we have created a facility where they can be adopted. And parallelly, we have created a facility at a fast rate where they can be adopted, that, okay, it can be used for invasive or non-invasive purposes typically for the healthcare. So these zones has to play a 360 role, not only for the development purposes, for the facilitating those things which has been developed, for adopting them. And I always say the government can play as a customer role to facilitate these startups, because startups to a company like in a big company, GE Healthcare, the Toshiba Healthcare, the Fuji Healthcare, for them there is a different type of confidence, which also they started now taking it from some good innovations from the startups. When I am a startup, I am a very young innovator within a small thing, but when I have to launch it, that launch pad is to be facilitated through these zones only. So there is a great need for what you call joining the dots, where they are working it separately, utilizing the youth for coming forward and working into these zones, and then government just acting as a facilitator and a customer, typically in the healthcare, to market them, to adopt them, so that the confidence for the other private players should also dwell. I hope I had justified these two questions at some level. Let us take this discussion further. I will put more points, practical points into that.
Thank you, Rajiv. You have very rightly pointed out that there is need to focus on creation of the ecosystem, which includes the government support, which includes the education support, which includes the industrial support. So now let's take another question to Sushil ji. Sushil ji, who is Vice President of R&D in one of the leading Indian company, I would say, in the medical devices. Sushil ji, what are your views that how India is globally placed in the medtech industry, and what is the future of medtech sector in India? Sushil ji, please.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, organizers, for having me here. And Harishi, coming to your question, like India is, one of the top 20 medical device markets in the world. So it is a sizable place where, medtech sector can grow and, and can nurture very well. If we say the current market size of medical device market in India is around $10 billion, which is expected to grow to $50 billion by 2025. So if you see the growth rate, which is quite substantial in the coming year, post COVID era, there has been a lot of innovations, and you can say in medtech sectors, the kind of collaboration which are required will be helping this sector to boost up. If we say the role of the government, as Mr. Krishnan and Mr. Gulati has also mentioned, here definitely government has to act as a customer. They have to facilitate the sector to grow it to the next level. At present, if we say we have import dependency of more than 75%, which is quite huge as an country. We have to, as an industry and support from the government, we have to reduce this import dependency. So if we see, there have been so many initiatives in the recent past where government has introduced production-linked incentive schemes, introduction of the medical device parks, and few other regulatory framework strengthening which had happened from the government side, which is quite encouraging. If these things, the kind of support that we will be getting from the government, definitely there is no looking back. If we see the medtech sector, it has been defined as a sunrise sector since 2014. So everybody has recognized this sector's potential. So definitely, as Mr. Krishnan has also mentioned, R&D is one of the key factor in the transformation of the medtech sector, where the R&D has to be done in collaboration, not to be in isolation, where academia and the industry has to come together, where medical and the engineering teams has to come together. I would like to congratulate CBAT team that to provide such a platform where industry and the clinicians can collaborate. They can come with an ideas and go with a real product. We are working with CBAT from past few years, and there's a tremendous support we got from CBAT. So these are the kind of platforms which are required across India at multiple states levels. We have to see towards India-based innovation with indigenous manufacturing as one of the success factors for the medtech sectors in the coming year. Health tech startups, wearable devices, telemedicine, big data, robotic surgeries are few of the catalysts and the boosters to the medtech sector. Definitely, the technologies like AI, blockchain, machine learning, AR, VR, and Internet of Medical Things. These are going to accelerate the growth in the sector. And India, as an innovation hub for the medical devices, is definitely going to go a big way. This is one kind of summary I wish to answer to your question, Dr. Harish. I will be happy to answer more if you have any further queries. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shilji. Very nicely you have told the industrial perspective and how medtech industry can move forward. So my next question is to Jeevji. Jeevji has in the past has a role of manpower training also when he was associated with All India Council of Technical Education. So my question is related to that sector, that to create this ecosystem, what are the skilled manpower needs of medtech industry, and what is the role of incubators in the medtech industry?
It's quite interesting. I mean, without the skills, you can't do anything. Let me share a small example. I mean, when you say the incubators, the skill, the awareness, and all those things. I was in a committee where some startup was pitching. So he said, I created what you call an IoT-based wristband to monitor the health of pregnant women. And he wanted to use it typically in the rural area, because at rural area, they wanted that there is no doctor available immediately. So this can be used through some cloud services he made. And the interesting part, which in that story came, he said he went to a rural area. He gave that wristwatch. He used it in the wristwatch, the wristband where there's a watch was also to that lady. And they kept about 2 to 3 weeks away from that, keep monitoring them at their own servers from their own lab also. It was interestingly everything was coming more than normal. They went back. They asked them, I mean, okay, the things were like, as we predicted, are more towards the more efficient way. So where is your, what you call the wristband? Can I have? So that lady said that my husband has taken it in the morning. Whenever he going to the fields, he used to take this as a watch. And most of the 3 weeks, the data which they monitor is the data of their husband. So then that fellow, he sat in that village. He studied what is that thing which these ladies can't take out from their body, so that I can put the sensors within that. So our Mangal Sutra, so he put the sensors into the Mangal Sutra, and the things were started happening in a right manner. Why I shared this whole story is the skilling to the people who are implementing these technologies, to the skilling of those people who really want to develop it, utilize it, and then to take it to the field. All these are small things which are really needed if you want that technology should work also. I remember, I mean, the times when, why I'm taking this example, because I see 1 or 2 people from the radiology side are also there. In 90s, when 1991, when I shifted to Delhi, there was a scarcity of a radiologist, and there are a couple of CT scanners, and the radiologist has to run from one place to the other place also. So what they say, that they trained that they are technicians, radio technicians, but still that radiology has to run. So we thought at that time the radiological information, IARS, and how the teleradiologies can be implemented in India. There were a lot many challenges into that. Somehow roped some of the innovator from Canada, and we wanted to exhibit this, connecting the AIIMS and the Escorts, what you call at that time in South Delhi, which was there. And we brought that equipment to exhibit. Unfortunately, that was landed on Friday evening, and Saturday and Sunday was the exhibitions. So we couldn't take that equipment out because of some customer rules, which didn't allow that at that time, though the top agencies were involved into that. So here I say, the skilling of those people, those regulators who are handling the healthcare and who want to sign those files where this import, they should know the importance of the healthcare also. So there is in a broad spectrum, starting from education. When this pandemic came, in one of the conversations, I said, we in India, we created a platform where we wanted a schemes that as in every family, one person should be trained on digital inclusion. See how this helped when the pandemic came and everybody was doing most of the time something on the virtual mode. So when this pandemic came, I said, can't we think of training at least one person from each family on healthcare? That means providing them some basic skills of a paramedical staff. If I know only to measure the temperature with the thermometer, now people know how to use the oximeters and how to even switch on their oxygen concentrators and how to control them also. So some basic skills are even required at a local, as a society, as in a what you call in a housing societies, or kind of mahalla level also. So there is a huge spectra which is vacant, which is looking forward for the people who really understand this, can dissipate this skilling from this whole full spectra also. Starting from the top, the people who are making the regulations, to the people who are even quality controlling it. Okay, let me take another example over there. Recently, I came across with one of MSME who was struggling during this, immediately after this pandemic, manufacturing the medical oxygen concentrators. This is some very common example. Everybody started importing the things, and there was an Atmanirbhar bubble also over there, and the pressure also that we should take it. But the cost effectiveness was so that the government pushed the big R&D labs to transfer those technologies to the MSMEs, to the people who are really into the healthcare. Now look into that. Those people who are looking into the high-end R&D departments, they transferred this technology to the MSMEs, no doubt in that. They provided the vendor list also. But when you go to the next level of when you are manufacturing at MSME level, the cost effectiveness of the whole story which has been transferred, even you look into the PCBs also. Those PCBs are 6 layers. And I was shocked when I was mentoring those both the ends, that why we really need a 6-layer PCB and increasing the cost so heavily when we can create it easily accessible to next door, maybe a single layer, maybe double layer, just to control 3 senses over there, the sensors over there. So why I'm putting this question over there, the people even who are designing, they should know that when this tool, when this equipment, where it is to be used, these skills is very important even to the designer people also. You don't need any rocket science for developing those high-end things and then affecting it in the Atmanirbhar and affecting it in the cost effectiveness, and want to compete the other countries and want to implement at the rural area where everybody is looking what you call the cost effectiveness, affordable technologies in healthcare. So all these skills are scattered maybe on the technology side, maybe on the implementation. So I only at this stage say, let everybody should join dots and start spreading this message, start providing the skills at every stage where they can, and let us join dots for that also. And Seaboard, I'm fortunately very happy to look into, they have created one of that platform where people can adopt it, can look into that, and can share their knowledge also. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv ji. We also have with us a person who is leading this initiative of Center for Innovation and Biodesign, also leading the thought of creating medtech industry ecosystem as well as incubators dedicated to medtech industry. So we have with us Dr. Varinder Garg, MD Radiology. As mentioned by Jeevji, also cited an example related to radiology. So let's listen to views of Dr. Varinder. Dr. Varinder, please.
Thank you, Dr. Harish. Among the gained panel, Shri Madan Krishan ji, Rajiv ji, Sushil ji, Kapoor ji, on the panel, and many more are not visible. So this topic is very dear to my heart. When we conceived the CBAT platform in PGI, so I was questioned many times by my colleagues in PGI that you seems to be over enthusiastic with this project. One of my very close friends once asked me, okay, why are you so excited about this project? So I told him, this is not a project. This is mother of many projects. This is mother of many fertile projects. So the gap between the researchers, strategists, marketing strategists, and the ground requirements is huge. In the beginning of my career, I spent 7 years in the peripheral institutes in the rural areas of Punjab, Haryana, and Chandigarh. That's why I am able to appreciate that gap. Then I had a chance to serve in Medical College of Patiala, have trainings in Medical College of Haryana, and then serve in the known medical college in Chandigarh, and then in the esteemed institute like PGI, and then in the team of the Honorable President of PGI, that is Union Health Ministry. So in this journey of around 20 years, I came across almost every stakeholder. So for me, let me compare the whole situation with a passenger who has booked the flight from Delhi to Jaipur via Mumbai, who is not only spending more money, not only spending more time, and he is missing his targets also. And he is wondering that I have spent the more money and what is the wrong in my price. He is checking with the speed of the flight. He is checking with the credentials of air company that everything is fine. The only thing is the wrong route chosen by the. So today, Madanji is on the board, Rajiv is on the board. Marketing strategy of the big companies is pushing the high-tech products every day. We are spending millions, billions of dollars in improving the current infrastructure, current products, current devices, and in marketing them and in popularizing them, in capacity building, in R&D. But how many people are using those high-tech products? In India, a country of 1.39 billion people, I will say India is a continent in itself, bigger population size than any country and many continents. So 80% people, they don't have access to the high-tech products. 90% of the institutes, they have no high-tech product in their purchase agenda, in their expansion list. 80% of the market is catered by family or a person-owned nursing homes in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, even in the metropolis. that gap is being filled by the refurbished instruments or by the non-certified players. And a vicious cycle has been set. To expedite this channel, companies are putting more money, more capacity building exercise, but the real gap is between the real end-time user and the strategist. So we have to repurpose the multiple technologies which are put in the penultimate or in the second penultimate or even dumped by the companies. If one cannot afford the surgical robotic surgery unit, then one must afford the at least laparoscope. Still in the periphery, there are thousands of surgeons who are doing open surgeries only, or they are using some inferior laparoscopes, refurbished laparoscopes, uncertified, unverified, non-validated cell laparoscope, leading to the bad outcomes and discouraging the entire class of surgeons to adopt the newer technologies. So one bad example is not merely one bad experience. It is a more cited, more followed example rather than a success story. No doctor wants to be a failure. No doctor wants to be cited for the wrong reason. So this vicious cycle is killing lot of innovation, and is also pushing back an entire class of the physicians and the surgeons who can make healthcare more accessible, more affordable, and who can add to the quality. So it's up to us. We have to fire from all the engines. Only R&D and only marketing of the high-tech products is not the need of the hour. Before pushing one robotic surgery unit, we should push 1,000 laparoscopes. Instead of pushing PET scans, we must enable our radiologists in diagnosing the cancer in the early stage on the ultrasound and on the CT. We must improve the capacity of our peripheral healthcare givers as well as their tendency to use the high-tech instruments. Simple, I will cite one example. Mammography is not accessible, available and affordable to the 80% of the Indian population, which is a very basic investigation for the breast cancer screening. Low dose CT scan is not available to the 80% people, and if it is available, then it's not affordable, and if it is affordable, then its reporting is questionable. Digital colposcopy, 80% of the gynecologists are not practicing digital colposcopy. Pap smear is still done with the people who had symptoms only. 80% of the gynecologists, they don't have pap smear on their routine checklist. So my humble request is that tuberculosis is killing more people than cancer. Even the good quality X-ray is still in rise in the rural areas. So we have to change, we have to culture an entire class of the doctors, physicians, surgeons, gynecologists, radiologists to think strategically. The strategical thinking is missing at every step, or it is wrongly positioned. Instead of holistic view of the peripheral scene, We are just focusing on the faster, newer. So we are not taking into the account people who has not boarded the bus yet. So their number is huge, at least 7 to 8 times who are already in the coach. So those who are in the coach, they are improving day by day. But the people who have missed the bus, who are the owners of the single doctor nursing homes or the family run nursing homes or multi-specialty hospitals in the rural tier 2, tier 3 urban cities and even the metropolis. Even in Delhi, Pune, Bangalore, you can find hundreds of the gynecologists who are not performing total laparoscopic hysterectomy. They are doing lap-assisted hysterectomy and they are telling their patients that we are doing it laparoscopically. So that patient is telling an entire class of the people that there is no difference between the open laparoscopy and the open hysterectomy and the lap hysterectomy. So credibility of the modernization in the healthcare is not established, and one very wrong notion is established even in the healthcare providers that the high-tech services will be costlier. They will not be affordable. This notion is very wrong. This is killing the innovation and enterprises in the healthcare services, as well as this is creating a vicious cycle. It is reducing the number of people who are using the high-tech modalities and hence making it costlier. If more and more surgeons, more and more physicians will board the bus, it will make the journey accessible as well as affordable. If a person sitting in the remote area wants to get some high-tech treatment done, traveling time and expenses keeps him or her away. So we have to strategize for the percolation of the technology to the tier 2, tier 3 cities and the smaller nursing homes. It will happen in the steps. It will not happen in a single go. We can't convince a radiologist sitting in the peripheral city to install MRI directly. First, we will provide him a multi-slice CT which is affordable. We have to make his capacity, we have to make him more capable in terms of reporting CT and MR. We have to teach him more and more users, musculoskeletal users, other new users, color Doppler on his ultrasound machine. Now, 80% of the healthcare providers, they are planning their strategy just based on their own capability and their own drainage area. They have modeling is not on their agenda. So we have to recruit them unless we will not keep in the view the end service provider and the end user. We will not able to break these jinx. So this is my only submission to all of stakeholders in CBIO. In the last 1.5 years, we are more focused on the mindset of the doctors, because this is the most important factor which will make any innovation or any product a success or a failure. So this is my only humble submission in this esteemed panel, that we must take this factor more into account, and we should make it happen in India. 1.39 billion people have every right to the modern, advanced, affordable, accessible healthcare at their doorsteps with their social and economic stability. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vrinder. Definitely, as pointed out by all our esteemed panelists, we will be focusing on creation of the ecosystem, and now there is a time for vertical as well as horizontal growth. Although things have already started into this direction, that we should focus on the medtech zones, R&D, make in India products, training of the manpower, creation of the new startups, handholding of the startups by the bigger players as well as by the government. So all the points by the esteemed panelists will be listed and taken care of, and will be given as a feedback to various agencies in the country. Thank you all the panelists. Now I hand over the session to Dr. Shefali for further.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. So now we move on to our award session. So our awardee, Mr. Ayush Kapoor, I would like to introduce him. He's the marketing manager, Lifebuoy brand, HUL. Mr. Ayush Kapoor, marketing manager, Lifebuoy brand, HUL. He's the area sales and customer manager for 3.5 years in Delhi and Haryana. He has been a senior brand manager, handled both brand building and brand development, all 6 Ps for Cornetto from 2016 to 2018. He led first of its kind co-branding partnership between HUL and Mondelez to launch Cornetto Oreo, which has been the most successful launch in HUL's food and refreshment business in over a decade. He has been the marketing manager, Lifebuoy and V-Wash Skin Cleansing HUL, and marketing manager, Naturals, Hamam, Rexona, Moti, Skin Cleansing HUL. We welcome you, sir, and I would like to invite our chief guest to kindly confer the Arogya Sebayat Innovation and Enterprise Leadership Award to Mr. Ayush Kapoor. Thank you so much, sir.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks.
Achievement, and Shri Ayush, wonderful to work in this hygiene health industry and bringing innovation. It's important at this period. So I'm really happy to see that you are the proud recipient of this award. So for the award to you.
Thank you so
Thanks
much. Ayush, sir, would you like to present your from your side, or we should present it from here?
Maybe you can flash the presentation, and I'll just quickly speak about why we are in this event.
Right,
First
sir.
of all, thanks a lot to Dr. Garg and the whole team at
Visible? We've started your presentation. Is it visible?
Yes, it is.
All
You
right,
can move
right.
to the next slide. I am not very important in this one. Thanks a lot to Dr. Garg and the whole team for giving us this opportunity, and a big thanks to all the esteemed panel members and the chief guests, sir. I know this is a session on MedTech, and it's a bit of a surprise that a soap brand is getting represented. But to be honest, if I look at it as an outsider, soap, where I've been working for the last 3 and odd years, it's the most affordable medtech out there. It's the most affordable non-pharma product that really prevents diseases. I represent Unilever. Unilever is a MNC that is present in some 200 countries, but we have a very special relationship in India. We have been around for 100 years, and nearly 95% of what we make what we sell in India is made in India. So we actually represent Atmanirbhar Bharat. We have been on that journey for a long time. Lifebuoy, the brand that I've on, has been at the forefront of driving behavior change around health and hygiene for the past century in India. Hand washing is the most affordable way of preventing spread of diseases. Just to put a number to it, some 10 to 12 lakh kids die every year in India of preventable diseases. All those could be prevented by just washing hands and maintaining basic health and hygiene. We are a big supporter of the vision of the Prime Minister with Swachh Bharat and Atmanirbhar Bharat. And that is what we embody every day with what we do on our brand Lifebuoy. In the last 10 years, we have taught around 30 crore Indians how to wash their hands properly and when all to wash their hands. So we don't know the real number, but we can estimate we must have saved quite a few lives by teaching people just how to wash hands and take care of their health and hygiene. We run many programs in partnership with many partners like Gavi, like Population Council of India, etc., where we take this message across the deepest corners of the country. We go to the ruralmost corners of the country with the message of washing hands. The pandemic was a watershed moment for us. We became the first brands to start talking about. We stopped advertising Lifebuoy when the pandemic hit, but we instead started promoting hand washing and telling consumers that you can wash hands with any soap. So all our ads started carrying all brand names. We said you can wash hands with Lifebuoy or Dettol or Lux or any soap that is near you. Just wash hands because that is the only way to prevent spread of this disease. So we became a real advocate for this affordable bar of soap, which can really prevent diseases. We continue to do a lot of efforts on building hand washing as a habit. The latest one is something called H for hand washing. It's a very simple idea that when young kids are taught alphabets, H should stand for hand washing and not just horse or hippo. So if you get them young, maybe you can teach them for life and get them to start washing hands properly. We have tied up with Mr. Ruskin Bond, with Education Ministry, and we are now taking that message across a lot of schools. The initiative that I am most closely involved in and I'm really proud of is this new affordable healthcare model that we are bringing. So Lifebuoy has developed the first AI bot. It's a voice-based bot that is called Mobile Doctor Knee. It is available on any phone, smartphone, feature phone, and it answers health and hygiene related questions in all the languages in India. So we are developing more and more of such capabilities every day. This already answers some 7,000 questions. It's free of cost, and we have already had more than 10 lakh people come and interact with it. As Dr. Garg said, that the real gap in healthcare is towards the fringes of our society, where a lot of medical practitioners are not present. We are trying to solve preventive healthcare for those consumers. That is the purpose of Lifebuoy. So consumers who don't have any source of scientific information, who don't have access to doctors or anyone trained in their family. I love the suggestion that Rajiv ji said that in every family there should be one trained healthcare worker. So we are trying to solve it in another way. We are trying to give a doctor in every pocket, that in everyone's access there should be a doctor, or at least a doctor-like companion. So we have made this Mobile Doctor Knee, which can answer some 7,000 questions with 98% accuracy. We are making it better every day, and this is already reaching out to lakhs of consumers every day, where they are coming and answering very simple questions कि अगर स्कूल खुलने वाला है तो हम अपने बच्चों की रक्षा कैसे करें कोविड टाइम. So stuff like that, very simple scientific information which they don't have access to right now. We are building more features onto it as well. I would like to end by sharing 2 lessons we have on developing technology for this really bottom of the pyramid 300-500 million Indians. The first is access is very important. Access is the biggest challenge. And by access, it's not just physical access that devices are not available. Even when a device is available, most people don't know how to use it. So we realized that because initially when we made this product, there were 5 steps to get to the product. You had to accept terms and conditions, and then it would ask permission to open mic, and it was not available on the home screen, and most consumers did not know how to do it. So giving very easy access became very important for this product. And that is our understanding, that if you have to solve for the last person in the queue, you have to first reach the last person and reach them in a way that they know. Again, Seaboyd has helped us design it better. The second big learning is that today in this VUCA world, which is so complex, it is impossible to solve anything on your own. So you need a lot of collaboration. And the collaboration, for example, we are doing on this product is with doctors, who help us design the content, is with data scientists who help us figure out what should be the questions we answer next, is with telecommunication partners who help us take this product to as many Indians as possible. It is with all different kind of organizations who help us make it a product which is useful for the consumer. It is in regards to this collaboration, I think that Ceboid has such an important role in the ecosystem, because we need platforms where more organizations with different agendas can come together and try and make one simple product that can really help create a difference for millions of Indians at a time. And that is the need of the hour, that millions of Indians become healthier, have a healthier living, have a safer life. And it won't happen if only I do it or only one organization does it. It will happen only if all of us work together to do it. So I like to end again by thanking a lot to all the support that is being provided by Dr. Garg and his team, so that we can take this, we can build this product and we can now take it to a lot more people on the ground. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
So now I invite Dr. Sakshi to please give a formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Sifali. On behalf of Vigyan Bharati Unnat Bharat Abhiyan and Center for Innovation and Biodesign, I express my gratitude to Shri Madan Krishnan ji for your presence, very inspiring address, and presenting before us different perspectives of medical technologies and current scenario in India. Special thanks to all our panelists, Dr. Akshay Saxena, Mr. Sushil Rana, Dr. Rajiv Gulati, Dr. Harish Kumar, and Dr. Varinder Garg for presenting their views by highlighting gaps and considering different outlooks, horizons, and steps leading to realize the dream of Atmanirbhar Bharat. We are thankful to our awardee for their contribution for the betterment of society at large. Thanks to all the audience for joining us. Now I request Dr. Varinder to say a few words.
After formal vote of thanks, I'm just interrupting to share one good news with all of us, that today India crossed 1 billion mark in COVID vaccination. So I'm sharing one slide. So under the able guidance of our worthy Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji and the dynamic leadership of Shri Mansukh Mandaviya ji, today we have done a marvelous job which was unimaginable few months before. I still remember the people from medical fraternity used to discuss that whether the vaccination will be available to us or not, because USA was putting billions of dollars in the advance purchase of the vaccine, and it was almost out of question for a developing country India. But today India is the largest provider of the vaccination, and even the global vaccination program is completely depending upon the India's ability to produce the vaccine. So the same miracle we can repeat in the field of medical devices and equipments. So with these words, I will take leave once again. I congratulate all the professionals, all the people who were part of this campaign and who cooperated in getting the vaccination done. All our people, 1 billion recipients, and the researchers, professionals, administrators, along with our able leadership under the dynamic leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji and the Honorable Health Minister Shri Mansukh Bhai Mandaviya ji. So this miracle has been done. Today I was talking to one of our participants from USA. Even doctors are not getting second dose still. One of our participants got her second shot yesterday only. And in India, vaccination centers are empty and waiting for people to come and get vaccination. So it's a day of choice for all of us. Thank you.
thank you all for joining us, and I invite all of you to join us for tomorrow's session at 10 a.m. Thank you very much.